How's it going, everyone? This is Jack here with the Commander's Wire, and welcome back to another video. Today we have some more news and rumors regarding some potential new additions to the Commander's coaching staff, as well as a little nod to our history I'm going to put at the end of today's video. To start out, according to John Keim, there are some potential reported interest in defensive coordinator Brian Flores coming to the Washington Commanders. Obviously, this has to happen every time I am in the middle of editing the video I just recorded. However, according to Ian Rapport, the Commanders have officially interviewed Brian Flores for their defensive coordinator position. So in the video, I talk about this under the assumption that the Commanders have not officially interviewed Brian Flores, but it has come out later that the Commanders have officially interviewed Brian Flores for the defensive coordinator position. So just wanted to put that out there. It was reported that the interest is most likely coming out of the Flores side rather than the Commander side, which is a good thing to hear, especially knowing that Flores is a very popular candidate for even becoming a head coach in this year's head coaching cycle. Brian Flores has a very strong relationship with general manager Adam Peters, who worked with him in New England for 5 years as a scout, and they still maintain contact to this day. Brian Flores and Adam Peters had a very long conversation and warm embrace on the sideline before playing the Vikings this season, and they talked a lot on the field. So we don't know exactly what they're talking about. Hopefully, Adam Peters was giving him a little nudge, asking him to come to the Commanders before the start of this upcoming season. John Keim can't confirm if there was an interview set up in the moment. However, the team is being very quiet and could be doing a lot in the background that we don't see yet in order to set something like that up. Brian Flores tends to favor veteran players in Minnesota and also position versatility, which is something that Dan Quinn really likes about building his own roster. One caveat to this, though, is when you have a really high-level defensive coordinator like Brian Flores, normally your head coach isn't going to be too involved in the defense. You would normally like to see a offensive-minded head coach as well as a very high-level defensive coordinator. They tend to balance each other out and allow each other to kind of work by themselves in order to better each side of the ball that they're working on. But we don't have that. We have Dan Quinn, who is, as of this past season, has been very involved with the defense and could potentially butt heads with Brian Flores if Brian Flores does become the new defensive coordinator in Washington. Another thing I wanted to mention with Brian Flores is he's a top head coach candidate this year. So that means that, like Mike McDaniel, he brings a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience to the game, especially on the defensive side of the ball. However, he may only be a one-year rental for Washington. It may be he spends one season in Washington as the defensive coordinator, but he may jump ship at the end of next season and potentially be a head coach somewhere else. And that will put us right back into the same position we are right now, looking for a new defensive coordinator. Another thing I wanted to mention with Brian Flores is that he may not be looking to leave the Vikings just to have the same job. He may enjoy working with the Vikings. The only way to get him out of Minnesota is to get a promotion to a head coaching role. And so it would take a lot for him to come to Washington, maybe even becoming the highest paid defensive coordinator in the NFL, just in order to get him in the building. Now, moving on to what we would see in Brian Flores if he does decide to come to Washington and how he would shape our defense. One thing he's very popular for is for creating turnovers. He tends to blitz very creatively with a lot of unique pressure packages, as well as playing a lot of significant zone coverage, leading to top NFL rankings in points allowed, takeaways, and rush defense over the last couple years as the Vikings defensive coordinator. So one thing with that, blitzing as well as playing man coverage, it's a very high risk, high reward type of scheme. However, it's worked in the past, I guess. He was obviously very good against the Commanders when we played him this year. Getting shut out is not the nicest thing to watch, but it shows that he knows what he's doing. He knows how to run the defense and could be really good for us. He transformed the Vikings from a bottom-ranked unit to a top-tier unit known for aggressive, deceptive schemes in 2023 through 2025. In the 2024 season, he was ranked 5th in the NFL for points allowed. In the 2023 and 2024 seasons, he was ranked 3rd in takeaways. His rush defense has the 3rd fewest rushing yards allowed per game in the league, and he blitzes at a high rate, like I said before, using 3-man and 5-man pressures extensively, creating a lot of chaos in the backfield. He has a high frequency of zone coverage, especially split field zone and even on blitzes. Like I said, very high risk, high reward, but one guy that could easily benefit from this would be a guy like Mikey Sainristil, who tends to be a lot better, especially at the NFL level, playing zone coverage on the outside if he is the answer to our cornerback too. Overall, Brian Flores has a very aggressive and deceptive philosophy. He is known for a lot of post-snap deception and diverse pressure packages, forcing offenses to keep on guessing. He focuses on precise execution, understanding formations, and leveraging personnel to their strengths. He's a guy that, like Mike McDaniel, except on the defensive side, tends to switch out his scheme for the players that he's using rather than conforming to players to his scheme. So he's a very dynamic defensive coordinator in that way. Just shows that his adaptiveness could be very productive, especially with the Washington Commanders roster that we saw this past season without how bad it is. And he could easily squeeze every bit of talent out of every player he has, even if it's not the best. But I believe Adam Peters and Dan Quinn, they're going to do their due diligence with a defensive coordinator hiring as well as with the roster construction in order to fill the defense with as much talent as possible, in order to give whoever our defensive coordinator that we hire as much to work with as possible, just to be the best that we can be and hopefully get back to the NFC Championship that we were just a couple years ago during Jaden Daniels' rookie year of 2024. The next thing I wanted to touch on is, according to Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, the Commanders have requested to interview Falcons assistant coach DJ Williams for the quarterback coach position. Now, DJ Williams is the son of Washington Redskins legend Doug Williams, and DJ has helped develop Michael Penix in the last 2 seasons in Atlanta. But as we know, Michael Penix has not been great. He's had his, 5th season-ending injury since he's, started playing football in college. We know that there was some controversy with Michael Penix during a interview where he says that he doesn't receive a lot of support in Atlanta and really only relies on his mom as well as his girlfriend or wife, for support, rather than getting that from coaches and peers. So I don't know if this is someone that we want to bring in the building in terms of a personality. However, it is cool to have the son of a team legend in the building on our coaching staff if this ends up being the case. According to John Keim, Washington has interviewed Seattle defensive back coach / pass game coordinator Carl Scott for their defensive coordinator opening. He's the only one who they've interviewed without prior defensive coordinator experience, and the Commanders plan to meet with Jonathan Gannon this Thursday. So, obviously, Carl Scott is definitely not a name that I've known before that tweet has come out. However, he could be a name to watch. Obviously, he says here he has not had any prior defensive coordinating experience. However, he could be someone that we interview now and hire down the road as a potential defensive back coach or pass game coordinator like he was with Seattle. So he could obviously fill another role that we need rather than just being the defensive coordinator. So another name to watch. Many, many years ago, yesterday on January 13th, the Redskins hired legendary coach Joe Gibbs as their new head coach. He would lead Washington to 4 NFC titles over the next 11 years, becoming the only head coach in NFL history to win 3 Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks. Gibbs would go on to become the winningest head coach in team history and gain induction into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1996. That was an ex-post coming out from Kevin Gallagher. Just a little nod to probably one of the most legendary coaches in Redskins history, being that it was, I can't do math right now, 26 plus 19, I think that's 45 years ago that Joe Gibbs was hired. So pretty cool nod there, especially from one of the greats. I appreciate you guys watching this far. If you haven't already, please go down below, drop a like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications to know when I post next. Let me know down in the comments if you guys want to see more videos like this, news, rumors, and other things. Soon, once the offseason starts, we're going to get into free agency, the draft, anything roster related, how the roster is going to be built, scheme, everything. So drop a like, subscribe, turn on post notifications just to know when I start posting those videos. I appreciate you guys watching till the very end. God bless and hail to the Commanders.